We looked at flood fill before. We also have the option to fill an area with bits of backstitch or with a copied motif. And that's fairly advanced. I'm not going to do that today, but it's an option there. We looked at automatic half stitch, where we took a circular area of full stitches, clicked within it, and it rounded the edges off with half stitches. We can use the similar routine to add outline to the outside of something. So let's draw a circle. Ish. And choose a dark color and automatic outline that. See how we get backstitch around the outside. I'm going to undo that because of a new thing that we added quite recently. You can imagine, although the color's wrong, that this is an apple. And we want to outline the apple. Now, if I use the automatic outline as I did before and I click here, what happens is only half the apple gets outlined because it's found the dark brown and done that. Not really what we want. The option below it is automatic outline of a shape. And what that means is if I click in the brown, it's going to start at the brown and look in all directions until it hits fluff. So we don't get a nasty line down the middle, it's on the outside of the apple. Moving on, select, you've seen, copy, paste, and so on. There are loads of options in the select menu, such as erasing backstitch from that area. Now that's handy if you've added backstitch on top of full stitch and you want to erase much of it and have another bash. You can do that and it'll only hit the backstitch. Most of the options that appear when you select an area are also available in the edit menu. So even if that pop-up menu disappears, if you have something selected, you can still flip the area, flip it around an axis, erase it, crop to that area, and so on. Now, crop to that area, since I've mentioned it, is actually quite useful. Everything's quite useful, really. Otherwise, I wouldn't have put it in. But let's say that we've made a large design and we're only interested in the apple. The rest of it can go hang. You can select the arrow, the apple, and choose crop to this area. And what will happen is it throws everything else away. Resizes the design as it goes. Now we have a very tiny design. And you might ask, how can I change the size of the design? At the bottom right-hand corner, you can see that it shows 13 by 14 stitches, 2 by 3 centimeters. If I click that, it takes me back to the Choose Your Design size screen. I can put more sizes in. And as long as I don't resize to fit, I'll end up with more space and the same apple. If I do resize, I end up with more space and a big apple. I'm going to leave the apple alone for the moment and end up with lots more space. And I'd like the apple to be in the middle of it. I could select the apple, erase it, paste it in the middle, but in the edit menu, we have an auto center option. And you can see now, the apple has moved to the middle of the design. One common question that we get sent by emails or anywhere else relates to something which I call guidelines. And the guidelines are there so that you can zoom in or out, move around, and know vertically or horizontally where to place something to keep it in line with something else. What do I mean by that? Let's do it. To get a guideline, you click on one of the rulers. And when you do that, it says, would you like to add a guideline? You can remove it by clicking again in the same place. And when you do that, a pink line appears. Get rid of it by clicking again. Now the point of it is that if I zoom or scroll away so that I can't any longer see the apple, and that's not really going to be possible because of the size of this design, but pretend you can't see the apple. The idea is if you want to have something that lines up with the apple, you can just go right up against that pink line because you know where the apple started. Yeah. The pink line will not appear in a printed or exported to PDF chart, and it'll also disappear after you've saved the chart and reopened it. But in the appearance menu, you can choose none for the pink guidelines and get rid of them all at a stroke. By editing the current thread, we have options to change a number of attributes about any item in the palette. You edit the thread by clicking the name on the bottom of the screen, and we get this Edit Current Threads dialog appears. There, we can change the name of the thread, we can change the number of strands that we're stitching with, or the symbol that we use to represent it. We can change the description, we can add comments. Try using italic, for example. Now its normal color is yellow, and French knots are also going to be yellow unless we choose to make them a different color. So I could have full stitches showing up as yellow, but wherever a French knot appears, in order that it stands out, that'll come out pink in the output. In a similar vein, we can have a different color for backstitch. Still the same thread, but it'll stand out against a white background. That's particularly useful if the thread is a white color, because a white backstitch line on a chart is virtually unreadable. We can set the backstitch strands here, and we can set a dash pattern for backstitch if we want to, so that instead of a solid line, we can get a dashed line instead to differentiate two similar colors. Now, the reason I came to this screen was to talk about colorways. And what I said was, having designed something like a sweatshirt, we might want to produce the same chart but with several different variations of color. Colorway 1, therefore, we can make violet. Colorway 2, for the Irish amongst us, can be green. And colorway 3 might be a blue. Nothing appears to have changed. But if we go to the colorway option and say, show me what this looks like if I choose all the colorway 1 colors, or how does it look in colorway 2, or how does it look in colorway 3, you can instantly visualize changes by swapping threads out at the end. Now, at the point where you export a PDF, there is an option, a checkbox, that allows you to say, give me a page that shows the colorways. So as well as your original chart, you get an extra page that says, by the way, if you happen to live in Ireland, use colorway 1 and you'll get a green shirt and everybody will be happy. Next to the colorway button was the navigator button. We saw that earlier. It's more impressive if I put a full coverage chart up, so let me just order. There. We have a chart that's too big to see all at once, and we want to move around there quickly without dragging scroll bars around, which can be a nuisance. So by clicking on that navigator, we get a full picture of the chart, and we just click on the thing that we want to work on. And when we do that, it takes us to that area and we can start working on it straight away. That navigator button is also replicated just underneath the palette. And when it's there, we can get a much bigger thing to click upon. You pay us your money, you take your choice. While I'm here, you'll have seen that I've widened the palette, minimized the palette. The palette can show us quite a lot of information. Normally people keep it narrow because they're only really interested in the colors. But let's break it down to its minimal state and then wind it open step by step so that you can see what's going on. The first column can show a variety of things. If it's small, it'll show you a color block. Just at the top, there's a faint gray line, and if you drag that and make it wider, when it gets wide enough, it will show you the stitch count. And it will update. So if I select a color and draw an enormous amount of new stitches, at 1304, has now become 1893. If I widen the column further, we get a row number as well. Diamond painters are very keen on row numbers. That's why that was added. The next column is the thread number, and if you narrow that, it'll try to keep the A and C tiny little letters at the beginning so that we still keep the numbers. Beyond that is the name of the thread. The next column is the percentage of markup complete. And then to the right of that, we have the colorways, which we set up earlier, but haven't actually done anything with here.